The candlelight flickered against the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Seabrook glasshouse, illuminating the only thing that mattered: the 6 empty chairs in the front row. My father, a man who built his entire public reputation on family values, hadn't just failed to show up. He had engineered a silence so heavy it threatened to crush my ribs. Standing there in white silk, I realized this wasn't a tragedy or a traffic jam. It was a message. The light in Harborwick was different than the light in Pennsylvania. It was sharper, saltier, lacking the heavy, humid gold that used to hang over the maple trees back home. I woke up at 6 in the morning in the suite at the Viewpoint Hotel, my eyes snapping open as if a bell had been rung right next to my ear, but the room was silent. The only sound was the low, rhythmic hum of the air conditioning and the distant cry of a gull out over the harbor. I lay there for a moment, letting the expensive sheets settle around me. Today was the day. 33 years of walking on eggshells, of trying to be the version of Ellie Young that fit into the family portrait, ended today. I had a vow rehearsed in my head, one that wasn't written on the heavy cream cardstock sitting on the nightstand. It was a private promise, the kind you make to the ceiling in the dark. I take you, Graham, to be my real family. I choose you because you are the first person who ever loved me without handing me a bill for it afterward. I sat up, sliding my feet onto the cold hardwood. My phone was sitting on the marble side table, face down. I reached for it, my stomach doing a small, habitual flip. Every major morning of my life, graduations, job interviews, the day I closed on my condo, began with a text from my father. Martin Young did not believe in good luck. He believed in logistics. He believed that if you were not awake 2 hours before you needed to be, you were already failing. I tapped the screen. There were 3 texts from Graham. Can't wait to see you. I hope you're sleeping in. Coffee is on its way up. There was a string of emojis from my college roommate. There was a weather alert predicting clear skies. There was nothing from my father. I stared at the screen, waiting for the bubbles to appear. Usually, by now, I would have a message that read, "Schedule is tight today. Ensure you are downstairs by 0800. Do not let the hair team run over." It was never affectionate, but it was present. It was his way of saying he was watching, that he was managing the world so I didn't have to, provided I did exactly what he said. Silence. Maybe he was already at the venue. Maybe he was handling a crisis with the florists. That sounded like him, Martin Young, the pillar of Maple Crest. The man who could out-argue a judge and charm a snake was probably terrorizing a 22-year-old florist about the symmetry of the hydrangeas. I showered, forcing the water to run hot until the steam filled the glass enclosure. When I stepped out, the room service cart had arrived with coffee, but the knot in my chest hadn't loosened. I checked my phone again. Still nothing. Not from my mother. Denise. Not from my sister. Tessa. Not from Jared. My brother. It is fine, I told myself. They are traveling. They are getting dressed. They are surprising me. But my family did not do surprises. My family did itineraries. By the time I arrived at the Seabrook Glasshouse, the nerves had shifted from a buzz to a low, throbbing headache behind my eyes. The venue was spectacular, a cathedral of glass and steel overlooking the Atlantic, chosen specifically because it looked nothing like the heavy, mahogany-paneled world I grew up in. This was open. It was transparent. I walked into the bridal suite, where Marin, my maid of honor and best friend since we were barely tall enough to reach the counter at the pharmacy, was already steaming her dress. She turned, beaming, but her smile faltered for a fraction of a second when she saw my face. "You look like you saw a ghost," she said, putting the steamer down. "I haven't heard from them," I said. I sat down on the velvet love seat, careful not to wrinkle the silk robe I was wearing. "Not a word. Dad hasn't sent his logistics text." Marin laughed, waving a hand. "Oh, come on. He is probably terrorizing the valet guys. I bet he is outside right now measuring the parking spots to make sure the limos fit." I tried to laugh, but it came out as a dry cough. "Maybe." I stood up and went to the window that looked out over the ceremony space. The chairs were set up in perfect rows, white wood against the green lawn. The ocean churned quietly in the background. It was perfect. It was exactly what Graham and I had paid for, saving every bonus and commission check for 2 years. Guests were beginning to arrive. I watched a shuttle bus pull up. It was Graham's cousins from Ohio, then a sedan carrying his college friends, then his parents, looking flustered and happy, hugging people near the entrance. I watched for 10 minutes. 15, the left side of the aisle, Graham's side, was filling up. Hats, suits, the murmur of conversation. The right side was empty. It wasn't just sparse, it was barren. I checked the time. 1 hour to curtain. "Where are they?" I whispered. Marin came up behind me, her hand resting on my shoulder. She looked down at the empty chairs, and I felt her body tense. "Maybe there is traffic coming from the hotel," she suggested. "The bridge gets backed up." I turned to her. "Marin, my dad would have hired a helicopter if there was traffic. He would have walked. He does not miss curtain calls." I went back to my phone. I called my mother first. It rang 4 times, 5 times, then clicked over. "You have reached the voicemail of Denise Young. Please leave a message." I hung up and called Jared. "You have reached the voicemail of Jared Young. Please leave a message." I called Aunt Lorna. "You have reached the voicemail of Lorna Finch. Please leave a message." I lowered the phone slowly. My blood ran cold. It wasn't just that they went to voicemail. It was the sound. I had heard it clearly. The background noise on the recording, the distinct, slightly hollow hiss of the room tone before the voice began, was identical on all 3. They hadn't recorded these greeting years ago. They sounded new, and they sounded like they were recorded in the same room, on the same day. "Marin, listen to this," I said, playing them on speaker. Marin listened, her brow furrowing. "That is weird." "It is not weird," I said, my voice rising. "It is orchestrated." Marin grabbed her own phone. "Let me text Tessa. She answers me faster than she answers you." I paced the small room while Marin typed. My dress was hanging in the corner, a column of white crepe that suddenly looked like a costume for a play that had been canceled. Marin's phone pinged. She looked at it, then looked at me, her expression unreadable. "What?" I asked. "What did she say?" Marin hesitated. "She says they are so sorry. She says something came up. Show me." Marin handed me the phone. The text from Tessa read, "So sorry, Marin. Unexpected complications. We cannot make it. It is for everyone's well-being. Please tell Ellie we love her." I stared at the words. For everyone's well-being. Tessa didn't talk like that. Tessa texted in fragments, in lowercase run-on sentences, usually complaining about her heels or her boyfriend. For everyone's well-being sounded legal. It sounded sterile. It sounded like something my father would dictate to a secretary. "They are not coming," I said, the realization hitting me like a physical blow to the stomach. "None of them. Ellie," Marin started, reaching for me. "No, look at the text." "Marin," I shouted, pointing at the screen. "For everyone's well-being." Who says that? My sister is 26 years old. She says, OMG, and literally, she doesn't talk about well-being. There was a knock at the door. It was Kelsey Rudd, our wedding planner. Usually, Kelsey was a machine, clipboards, earpieces, ruthless efficiency. Today, she looked like she hadn't slept in a week. She opened the door just a crack. "Ellie, can I have a quick word?" I wiped my face, forcing composure. "Come in." Kelsey stepped inside, closing the door firmly behind her. She wouldn't meet my eyes. She was looking at the floor, then at her iPad, then at the wall. "I have a question about the seating chart." She said, "What about it?" I asked. "Well," she stammered, "we had a request late last night to remove the name cards for the first 2 rows on the bride's side. I just wanted to confirm that we are keeping those rows clear." I stared at her. Who requested that? Kelsey shifted her weight. The message came through on the portal. It was authorized by, well, it was logged under your account. But the note said, per father of the bride. "My father called you last night?" "He didn't call." Kelsey said quickly, "It was a digital request, to modify the layout, to remove the family seating. I felt the room spin. He knew. He knew last night. He knew he wasn't coming, and he deleted his name from the chair so no one would see a placeholder for a ghost. He erased himself. I whispered, "Kelsey looked sick. I assumed you knew. I assumed it was a family dispute. I have to know. Ellie, do you want us to strike the chairs? Or leave them?" "Leave them," I said, my voice shaking. "Leave every single one of them." Kelsey nodded and fled the room. I sat back down, my hands trembling in my lap. This wasn't panic anymore. Panic is hot. This was cold. This was the icy, familiar dread of realizing that Martin Young was playing a game, and I was just a piece on the board. Why? Why today? If he objected to Graham, he could have said so. He had 3 years to say so. If he wanted to punish me for moving to Massachusetts, he could have cut me off. But to do this? To let me wake up, put on the dress, and walk into a room of staring strangers? It was cruelty. Pure, distilled cruelty. Someone knocked again. It was Tyler, one of Graham's groomsmen. He poked his head in, looking cheerful and oblivious. "Hey, Graham wanted to know if you had the rings or if— Whoa, you okay?" I nodded, unable to speak. "Okay, cool," Tyler said. "Hey, just a heads up. Tell your dad his suit is sharp. I saw him lurking near the catering tent." Charcoal gray? Serious-looking guy? I tried to say hey, but he was deep in conversation on his phone. My head snapped up. "You saw him?" "Yeah. Like 20 minutes ago, near the service entrance." I stood up. "You're sure?" Tyler shrugged. "I mean, looked like the guy in the pictures. Great hair. Stood really straight. He was looking at the building like he was inspecting the foundation." I pushed past Tyler, running out into the hallway. I didn't care that I was in my robe. I didn't care that guests might see me. I ran to the back exit, the one that led to the catering tent and the service road. "Dad!" I yelled. Pushing the heavy metal door open, the service area was bustling with waiters carrying trays of champagne, florists hauling buckets of waste. I scanned the area. A delivery truck was idling. A few staff members were smoking near a dumpster. There was no man in a charcoal suit. I stood there, the wind whipping my hair across my face. Tyler had seen him. He was here. He was on the property. If he was here, why wasn't he inside? If he was here, why were the chairs empty? I felt a hand on my arm. It was Graham. He was in his tuxedo, looking handsome and terrified. He shouldn't be seeing me. It was bad luck, but the look on his face told me luck was already gone. "Ellie," he said, pulling me away from the door. "Everyone is talking. The front rows are empty. What is going on? They are not here." I said, looking up at him. "Graham, none of them are here." Graham stared at me. "What do you mean?" "I mean my father isn't coming. My mother isn't coming. Tessa, Jared, Aunt Lorna. Nobody." Graham's face hardened. "Did they call?" "No. Tessa sent a text that sounded like a press release, and Tyler saw my dad out here by the dumpsters." Graham looked around the service yard, his jaw tight. "He is here?" "Tyler said he saw him." Graham took my shoulders. "Ellie, listen to me. If he is playing games, we are not going to let him win. We are not going to cancel." I looked at him. I could see the strain in his eyes. He was angry, furious, actually, but he was trying to hold it together for me. He worked in compliance. He liked rules. He liked things to make sense. This didn't make sense. "I don't know if I can walk out there." I whispered, "Everyone will see. They will look at the empty seats, and they will know I am unloved." Graham shook his head. "No. They will look at the empty seats and know that your family is broken. And then they will look at you and know that you are brave." He squeezed my arms. "We face it. Whatever this is, we face it after. Right now. We get married." I took a deep breath. The air smelled of low tide and expensive perfume. "Okay," I said. "Okay." The ceremony began 20 minutes late. Walking down the aisle is supposed to be a blur of joy. For me, it was a march through a battlefield. The string quartet played Pachelbel, a sound that usually made me cry, but today it just sounded shrill. I walked alone. I had planned to walk alone anyway, a feminist statement. I had told people, but now the space beside me felt cavernous. I kept my eyes locked on Graham. I refused to look to the left. If I looked to the left, I would see the 6 empty chairs in the front row. I would see the gaps where my history should have been. But I could feel the eyes of the guests. Graham's family, our friends. They were polite, but I could feel the confusion radiating off them. They were glancing at the empty seats. They were whispering, "Where are the Youngs? Is there an emergency? Did someone die?" I reached the altar. Graham took my hands. His palms were warm, grounding. The officiant began to speak about love and commitment, about the joining of 2 lives. I tried to listen. I really did. But my mind was racing. For everyone's well-being. Why that phrase? Why would my absence be for everyone's well-being? And why was my father inspecting the foundation? Midway through the exchange of rings, I saw movement in the corner of my eye. A member of the catering staff, a young woman in a black vest, was inching her way toward the altar. She looked terrified to be interrupting, but she caught Marin's eye. She signaled frantically. Marin, ever the professional, tried to ignore her. But the woman pointed at my bouquet, which Marin was holding. The officiant was saying, Graham, take this woman." The staff member crouched down and scuttled forward, slipping something into Marin's hand. She whispered something, then retreated. Marin looked down. She went pale. She looked at me. I was holding Graham's hand, the ring halfway onto his finger. Marin stepped forward, breaking protocol. She reached out and touched my arm. "Ellie," she whispered. I froze. "What?" She held out a small, white envelope. It had been tucked into the ribbon of my bouquet. I hadn't felt it. "The woman found this falling out of your flowers," Marin hissed. "Read the front." I looked at the envelope. In bold, jagged handwriting that I didn't recognize, were 6 words. "Don't marry until you read." The silence in the glass house was absolute. The ocean waves seemed to stop. The guests held their breath. I looked at Graham. He saw the note. He nodded. A barely perceptible dip of his chin. "Check it." I handed the ring to Graham. I took the envelope. My fingers felt like wood. I tore the flap open. Inside was a single piece of paper. It looked like a photocopy of an old legal document. It was grainy, covered in black specks from a dirty scanner. I didn't read the whole thing. I couldn't. The words were dense, legalese, paragraph after paragraph of clauses. But my eyes latched onto one line near the bottom. "Upon the marriage of Eleanor Marie Young, or upon her 33rd birthday, whichever comes later." I looked at the date at the top of the document. It was dated 1991, 2 years after I was born. And then I looked at the handwritten note clipped to the photocopy. "He isn't missing. He is waiting." The officiant cleared his throat. "Is everything all right?" I looked up. The world tilted. The white chairs. The blue ocean. Graham's worried face. It all smeared together into a kaleidoscope of panic. I said. Graham stepped in. "Just a moment. Folks, we have a small technical difficulty." He steered me away from the altar, pulling me into the small back hallway that led to the bridal suite. Marin followed, clutching the bouquet like a weapon. "Ellie, what is it?" Graham asked, his voice low and urgent. I held up the paper. "I don't know," I said. It is a trust document. From my grandfather." I scanned the paper again in the dim light of the hallway. The Alderbrook Trust. I knew that name. Alderbrook was the lake house, the one we stopped going to when I was 12. The one my father said was falling apart. Too dangerous to visit. I read the line again, my eyes fixing on the words. "Upon the marriage of Eleanor Marie Young." My father wasn't protesting the marriage. He wasn't having a tantrum. He was stopping a clock. "He isn't here," I whispered, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "Graham. He isn't here because if he is here, he validates the wedding, and if the wedding happens—" I looked at the paper. "Something happens to the money." Graham finished, reading over my shoulder. "Not just the money," I said. I remembered the letters my grandfather used to write me. I remembered the way my father used to lock the study door. I looked at the date on the photocopy. Today. The condition triggered today. My family hadn't abandoned me. They had been maneuvered. They had been played. And the man in the charcoal suit wasn't avoiding me. He was watching to see if I would actually go through with it. I looked at Graham. I looked at the ring I was still holding. "We have to finish," I said. "Ellie," Graham said. "This looks like fraud. This looks like danger." "I know," I said. "But if we stop now, he wins. If we stop now, whatever this document says, it doesn't happen." I turned back toward the door that led to the altar. My heart was hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. "I am going to marry you, Graham, and then I am going to find my father." "And then?" Graham asked. "And then I am going to destroy him." I didn't wait for an answer. I pushed the door open and walked back out into the light. The guests were murmuring, a sea of confused faces. I didn't care. I walked straight to the altar, took my place, and looked the officiant in the eye. "Continue," I said. The ceremony finished in a blur. I said, "I do." Graham said, "I do." We kissed. But it wasn't the soft, lingering kiss we had practiced. It was a seal on a contract, a pact of war. As we walked back down the aisle, the applause was scattered, hesitant. People didn't know if they were watching a wedding or a breakdown. I didn't look at the empty chairs this time. I looked straight ahead, at the exit doors. But as we passed the back row, I saw him, just for a second, through the glass wall of the vestibule. My father. He was standing outside, his charcoal suit perfectly pressed, his hands clasped behind his back. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't frowning. He was just watching. And then, as our eyes locked, he turned and walked away, disappearing into the shadows of the parking lot. I gripped Graham's hand so hard my knuckles turned white. We reached the privacy of the vestibule. The heavy doors swung shut behind us, cutting off the noise of the guests. I looked at the photocopy again. Full accounting of all assets to be delivered to the beneficiary immediately upon the satisfaction of the condition. I looked at Graham. My father didn't just skip my wedding. I said, "He tried to cancel it." "Why?" Graham asked. "Because," I said, tapping the paper, "I think he stole everything. The reception was supposed to be a party. It was supposed to be champagne towers, a jazz quartet playing Sinatra, and the kind of heavy, joyful noise that vibrates in your chest. Instead, Graham and I were locked in the manager's office off the main ballroom, sitting on leather chairs that smelled of lemon polish and stale coffee. Outside, 300 guests were drinking our wine and eating our crab cakes, confused and whispering. Inside, the silence was deafening. Graham loosened his bow tie, the black silk hanging limp around his neck. He looked exhausted. The adrenaline of the ceremony had burned off, leaving behind a gray, ash-like fatigue. "Tell me, Ellie," he said quietly. "Not the sanitized version you tell your therapist. Tell me the truth. How does he do this?" I stared at the trust document, now folded into a sharp square in my lap. "He doesn't scream," I said, picking at a loose thread on the arm of the chair. "That is the thing people don't understand about Martin Young. He doesn't throw things. He doesn't get drunk and rage. He solves problems." I looked up at Graham. When I was 22, I got into a fender bender. It was my fault. I was texting. I called him, crying. He didn't yell. He just said, "Stay there." He showed up, moved me to his car, and by the time the police arrived, the story was that he was driving. He took the points on his license. He paid the ticket, and then, for the next 3 years, every time I wanted to make a decision about a job, an apartment, a boyfriend, he would smile and say, "Are you sure you have the judgment for that? Ellie, remember the car?" Graham rubbed his temples. "He creates debt. He creates dependency," I corrected. "He helps you until you are drowning in gratitude, and then he holds your head under the water. He has been doing it to my mother for 40 years. He does it to Jared with his business loans. He does it to Tessa with her tuition. And he thought he was doing it to me." I held up the paper, but I left, I moved to Massachusetts. I made my own money. I didn't need his help, so he had to find a new lever. The door opened, and Marin slipped inside. She had ditched her bouquet and was holding her phone like it was a Geiger counter detecting radiation. Her face was grim. "You guys need to see this," she said. She placed her phone on the desk between us. "I went back through the texts from your family," Marin said. "The ones from Tessa. The ones that sounded robotic." I looked at the screen. "For everyone's well-being." I clicked on the contact info at the top. Marin said, "Look at the number." I leaned in. It said Tessa. It had her photo. "Look closer," Marin urged. I squinted. The area code was 570. The prefix was correct. But the last 4 digits. My sister's number ended in 8892. This number ended in 8893. I pulled back. "It is 1 digit off." I checked the others. Marin said, "Your mom's number. Jared's number. They are all spoofed. Someone bought burner numbers that are almost identical to your family's actual contacts and saved them in a way that would trick a caller ID if you weren't looking closely, or that they used a spoofing app to mask the real origin." Graham picked up the phone. "This isn't just interfering, Ellie. This is high-level manipulation. This takes planning." I felt a wave of nausea. It meant the texts I received this morning weren't from my sister. My sister might not even know I received them. "Where are they?" I asked, my voice rising. "If they didn't send these texts, where are they?" "We need to talk to Kelsey," Graham said, standing up. "Now." We found Kelsey in the catering kitchen, hiding behind a rack of dirty glassware. She was typing frantically on her tablet, her face flushed. When she saw us, she dropped her hand, looking like a child caught stealing candy. "Kelsey," Graham said. His voice was level, the voice he used when he was auditing a bank manager who was trying to hide a deficit. "We know about the seating chart. We know about the texts." Kelsey swallowed hard. I don't know what you mean. "My father called you," I said, stepping forward. The white dress felt heavy, ridiculous in the industrial kitchen. "He called you 2 weeks ago. Tell me exactly what he said." Kelsey looked at the chefs prepping the main course. She looked at the exit. Then she looked at me, and her shoulders slumped. "He called on a Tuesday." She whispered, "He sounded so worried. Ellie, he said you were spiraling. He said the wedding planning was triggering a severe anxiety episode and that you were dissociating." I stared at her. "Disassociating?" "He said you were making erratic decisions." Kelsey continued, her words tumbling out fast now. "He said he wanted to protect you. He authorized a quiet contingency plan. He said if you had a breakdown, he would handle the family side so you wouldn't have to deal with the shame of canceling in front of them. He told me to route all family communications through his office assistant starting yesterday, just to keep your stress down." I felt the blood drain from my face. "He used my sanity. He painted me as hysterical so he could isolate me." "And the seating chart?" I asked. "He sent the order last night." She said, "He said you had decided it was better if the family wasn't visible, that it would take the pressure off." He sounded so kind. "Ellie, he really sounded like he was trying to save you." Graham stepped in, his presence looming over the small woman. "Did he tell you to intercept a trust document?" Kelsey blinked. "A what?" "No, I don't know anything about a document." I believed her. That part was too dirty for the wedding planner. That part he had done himself. "I want to see the security footage." I said, "We marched to the security office in the basement of the venue. The guard, a confused man named Dave, who was eating a ham sandwich, didn't want to let us in until Graham flashed his corporate ID and used words like legal discovery and immediate liability. Dave pulled up the files. "Show me yesterday evening." I said, "Around 6. The screen flickered. Grainy black and white footage of the glasshouse interior appeared. Staff were setting up tables. The florist was arranging the arch. And there he was. Martin Young walked into the frame at 6:15, even in low resolution. His posture was unmistakable, shoulders back, chin up, moving with the fluid confidence of a man who owns every room he enters. He wasn't hiding. He was strolling. He walked up to Kelsey, who was by the altar. They spoke for a moment. He placed a hand on her shoulder, a gesture that looked paternal, comforting. Then, he reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a slim blue folder. He handed it to her. She took it, nodded, and placed it on the podium where the officiant would stand. "Wait," I said. "Pause it." The video froze. "That is not the trust document." I said. "That is the officiant's binder." "He swapped the binders?" Graham asked. "No," I said, watching the frozen image. "He inserted something." I watched as my father smiled, patted Kelsey's arm again, and turned to leave. He looked calm. He didn't look like a villain twirling a mustache. He looked like a father making sure the world was safe for his daughter. It was chilling. Graham took my hand. "We need to find them. Ellie, if he is here, they might be here." Graham pulled out his phone. "I am going to try them again, but I am not calling their cells." "What are you doing?" I asked. "I am calling your Aunt Lorna's Apple Watch," he said. "You told me she got one for her birthday because she wanted to track her steps. It has a separate cellular line, right?" I nodded. "Yes, but she never answers it. She doesn't know how to use it half the time. It is worth a shot." Graham said. He dialed. It rang, and then a tiny, tinny voice answered. "Hello? Is this Siri?" "Lorna," Graham shouted into the phone. "Lorna, it is Graham. Don't hang up." There was a pause. "Graham?" The voice sounded small, trembling. "Oh, Graham, is Ellie okay? Is she stable?" Graham looked at me, his eyes widening. "Lorna, Ellie is fine. She is standing right next to me. Where are you?" "But Martin said—" Lorna's voice cracked. "He said she collapsed. He said she was in a psychiatric hold at the hospital. He rushed us all out of the hotel this morning. He said we couldn't go to the venue because it would agitate her." My knees buckled. I grabbed the edge of the desk. "He told them I was in a psych ward." "Lorna," Graham said, his voice firm. "Ellie is not in the hospital. We just got married. Martin lied to you. Tell me exactly where you are." We are in Harborwick," Lorna whispered. "We are at a place called Bayline Executive Suites. He said it was a private waiting area near the clinic, but Graham, the door is locked from the outside. He said it was for security." "Locked?" Graham roared. "He left an hour ago," Lorna said. "He said he was going to talk to the doctors. We are just sitting here waiting for news. Give me the address." Graham said, "We are coming. We didn't change." I grabbed my purse. Graham grabbed the keys to the rental car, and we ran out the service exit. I didn't care about the reception. I didn't care about the cake. My family was being held prisoner in an office park 5 miles away. I drove. I drove in my wedding dress, the tulle bunched up around my knees, my bare feet working the pedals because I had kicked off my heels in the parking lot. Graham navigated, his hand resting on the back of my neck, squeezing it every few seconds to keep me grounded. Bayline Executive Suites was a gray, soulless building near the airport. It was the kind of place where depositions happened, where companies fired people, where bad news was delivered in air-conditioned silence. We burst into the lobby. The receptionist, a young woman with bright pink nails, looked up, her eyes widening as she saw a bride and groom storming toward her desk. "Where's the young family?" I demanded. She blinked. Excuse me? "My father, Martin Young, rented a conference room. Where is it?" "Oh, Mr. Young," she said, relaxing slightly. "Yes, he reserved the boardroom B, but what?" Graham barked. She checked her screen. "He checked out 20 minutes ago." My heart stopped. What about the people with him? "There were people?" she asked. "He just returned the key card. He said the meeting was finished. I didn't wait." I ran down the hallway, following the signs for boardroom B. Graham was right behind me. The door was unlocked. I threw it open. The room was empty. 12 leather chairs, a long mahogany table, a whiteboard that had been wiped clean. They were gone. "No," I moaned, stepping into the room. "No, no, no." I scanned the space. It smelled of cleaning fluid. "Wait," Graham said. "Look." He pointed to the far end of the table. There was a single paper coffee cup, and next to it, a notepad. I walked over to it. The top page had been torn off, but not cleanly. A jagged strip remained, and on the page underneath, there were impressions, the ghost of what had been written on the sheet above. I grabbed a pencil from the center of the table and rubbed the graphite sideways over the paper, shading it to reveal the indentations. It was an old trick, something I had seen in a movie once, but my hands were shaking so badly I almost snapped the lead. Letters began to appear in white against the gray graphite. Ellie Young, Eleanor Young, E. Young, Ellie M. Young. It was my signature, over and over again, but it wasn't just my signature. The handwriting changed slightly with each iteration. Some looped the Y wide, some made the E sharp. It looked like someone was practicing. And then, at the bottom of the page, in my father's distinct, architectural printing, Draft B. Accepted. He wasn't just holding them here, I whispered. He was doing paperwork. I looked at Graham. He forged my signature. He needed them out of the way so he could sign something in my name, and he needed to practice it until it looked perfect. Graham's face was pale. Ellie, if he forged your signature today, on the day you turned 33, he unlocked the trust. I said, he authorized the transfer. He needed to be the one to do it, but he needed it to look like me. I pulled my phone out. I dialed his office number, the main line for young Bauer. It was Saturday, but they had a 24-hour answering service for high-profile clients. Young and Bauer. How may I direct your call? I need to speak to Martin Young. I said, this is his daughter. One moment. Ms. Young. The hold music was classical. Vivaldi. It played for 2 minutes. Then a woman's voice came on the line. It wasn't his usual assistant, Mrs. Higgins. It was someone younger, smoother. Ms. Young, I am so sorry, but your father is currently in court and cannot be disturbed. In court? I laughed. A harsh, jagged sound. It is Saturday. The courts are closed. He is in an emergency arraignment, the voice said smoothly. He left strict instructions not to be interrupted. He is at my wedding, I snapped. Or he was supposed to be. I have no information about that. Ma'am, his calendar says court. I hung up. They were in on it. The whole firm. The receptionist had been coached. The timeline had been scrubbed. I looked around the sterile conference room. I looked at the coffee cup my mother had probably drunk from, wondering why her daughter was in a psych ward. I looked at the empty chairs where my family had sat. Terrified and lied to. While I was walking down an aisle 5 miles away thinking they didn't love me. The humiliation that had been burning in my chest since morning suddenly vanished. It evaporated, leaving something cold and hard in its place. Clarity. He didn't hate me. He didn't love me. He was consuming me. I was an asset. I was a resource to be managed, harvested, and discarded. I looked at Graham. I am done. I said, done with what? He asked. I am done crying. I am done wondering what I did wrong. I am done being handled. I picked up the notepad with the forged signature impressions. I ripped the page out and folded it carefully. We are not going back to the reception, I said. Where are we going? We are going to find a lawyer who isn't afraid of Martin Young, and we are going to document everything. Every text, every voicemail, this footage from the security camera, this notepad. Graham nodded slowly. He reached out and took my hand. We are building a case. Yes, I said. We are building a bomb. We spent the next 6 hours in our hotel suite, but not the way newlyweds are supposed to. Graham was on his laptop, downloading the call logs from his carrier. I was photographing the documents. We ordered room service, burgers and fries, and ate them sitting on the floor. Still in our wedding clothes, my dress was stained with grease at the hem. Graham's shirt was unbuttoned. We looked like the survivors of a shipwreck. At 11:30 at night, my phone pinged with an email notification. It was from a generic Gmail address. User 778291. Subject, resolution. I opened it. There was no body text. Just one sentence. If you want your family back, sign the addendum. Attached was a PDF file. My heart hammered against my ribs. I clicked the attachment. It was a legal document. Addendum to the Alderbrook Trust Management Agreement. I scanned the legal jargon. It was complex, intentionally dense, but the gist of it was simple. It was a voluntary restructuring of the trust assets. It stated that upon my marriage, the primary control of the Alderbrook Landing property and the liquidity associated with it would be transferred to a secondary management fund. The fund was called the Maplecrest Heritage Foundation. I scrolled to the bottom. There was a signature line for me, Eleanor Marie Young, and next to it, a date, today. He needs me to sign it. I realized, the forgery. Maybe it wasn't enough, or maybe he needs a witness, or maybe the bank pushed back. He is holding them hostage, Graham said, reading over my shoulder. He is saying if you sign this, he will stop the charade. He will release them from the lie. And if I don't? I asked. Graham looked at me. Then he keeps them in the dark. He keeps telling them you are crazy. He keeps them away from you. I looked at the screen. The cursor blinked on the signature line. He wants the money, I said. But it is more than that. He wants to win. I closed the laptop. Don't sign it, Graham said. I am not going to sign it. I said. I stood up and walked to the window. The harbor was dark, the lights of the boats bobbing in the distance. I am going to find out what is in that trust that is worth kidnapping my family for. And then I am going to take it all. The morning after my wedding did not smell like room service coffee and fresh flowers. It smelled like old paper and lemon furniture polish. Graham and I sat in the conference room of Carver Lane, a small law office tucked above a bakery on the edge of Harborwick. We had found Nina Carver through Marin, whose cousin had used her for a messy estate dispute a few years back. Nina was not the kind of lawyer my father would have hired. She did not wear a $3,000 suit. She wore a thick wool cardigan and reading glasses that hung from a beaded chain, and her office looked more like a library than a war room. But when she spoke, her voice had the sharpness of a scalpel. She laid the photocopy of the trust document on the table, smoothing it out with a flat hand. Next to it, she placed the tablet where we had pulled up the email attachment, the addendum my father had sent in the middle of the night. This is not a standard update, Nina said, looking over her glasses at me. She tapped the addendum on the screen. This is a diversion. What does that mean? I asked. My voice was raspy. I hadn't slept more than an hour. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the empty chairs. I saw my father standing in the parking lot, watching. It means, Nina said, that this document is designed to look like routine housekeeping. It uses a lot of soft language about family legacy and stewardship, but legally, it is a guillotine. She turned the tablet toward us. Look at Clause 4, she said. It says that upon the execution of this agreement, the beneficiary, that is you, Ellie, voluntarily waives the right to direct management of the primary asset and assigns that power to the Maplecrest Heritage Foundation. And the effective date? Graham asked. Immediately upon marriage, Nina said. Or rather, it tries to be retroactive. It is dated for yesterday. If you sign this, you are agreeing that as of the moment you said I do, you handed the keys to this foundation. I stared at the glowing screen. The Maplecrest Heritage Foundation. I knew that name. It was the nonprofit my father started 10 years ago to restore the town square gazebo and fund the high school scholarship program. It was his vanity project. Why would he want the trust assets in the foundation? I asked. Because nonprofits have different reporting requirements than private trusts, Nina said. And more importantly, if you sign this, you lose your standing to ask questions. You become a passive donor, not an active owner. She pushed the tablet away and pulled the photocopy of the original trust closer. But this, she said, tapping the grainy paper I had pulled from my bouquet. This is the real story. This is the Alderbrook Trust. I haven't seen this since I was a child. I said, my grandfather, Harlan Young, set it up. He died when I was 12. Nina nodded. Harlan Young was a smart man. He didn't trust easily. Did he? No. I whispered. He didn't. I remembered Harlan. He was a big man with hands that smelled like tobacco and sawdust. He used to sit on the porch of the lake house, Alderbrook Landing, and watch my father pace the lawn. Martin is a builder. Harlan used to tell me, but he builds fences, not bridges. You watch him. Ellie. Nina traced a line on the document with her fingernail. The trust holds the title to Alderbrook Landing and a significant investment portfolio. She said, but here's the kicker. Your father has been the trustee since Harlan died. He has had total control, but that control expires. When? Graham asked. 2 conditions. Nina said, first, upon the marriage of the beneficiary, or second, upon the beneficiary turning 33 years of age, whichever comes later. I felt a cold shiver run down my spine. I turned 33 last month. I said. Nina looked at me. And you got married yesterday, so both conditions are met. Graham said. Exactly, Nina said. As of yesterday, the trust dissolves into your name, not just the income. Ellie, the principal, the property, the records, all of it becomes yours. You have the absolute right to demand a full accounting of every penny spent over the last 20 years. I sat back in the creaky wooden chair. The room seemed to tilt. A full accounting. That was it. That was the threat. It wasn't that he didn't want me to be happy. It wasn't that he hated Graham. It was that he was terrified of me seeing the ledger. He didn't skip the wedding to be cruel. I said, the realization settling in my stomach like lead. He skipped the wedding to create a crisis. He needed to pause the clock. If I didn't get married, he bought himself time to get me to sign that addendum. And since you had already turned 33, Nina added, he was running out of runway. He needed you to sign away your rights before the marriage license was filed. That is why he sent the email last night. He is trying to close the door before you realize you own the house. I looked at the photocopy. Alderbrook Landing. I hadn't been there in 15 years. After Harlan died, my father stopped taking us. He said the roof was leaking. He said the foundation was cracking. He said it was unsafe. He put a padlock on the gate and hired a landscaping crew to keep the weeds down. But he never let us go inside. It stays in the family. He would say, but it needs to rest. He wasn't letting it rest, I whispered. He was hiding something inside it. I stood up. I couldn't sit anymore. The small office felt suffocating. I need to call my mother, I said. I stepped out into the hallway, leaving Graham and Nina to go over the finer points of the clause. The hallway was quiet, lined with framed maps of the harbor. I leaned against the wall and dialed the number. This time, it didn't go to voicemail. Ellie? The voice was small, fragile. It sounded like my mother, but thin, stretched. Mom? I said. Mom, where are you? Oh, Ellie, she breathed. We are at the airport hotel, in Philadelphia. We just landed. Philadelphia? I asked. Why are you in Philadelphia? Your father, she said. Her voice wavered. He said we needed to get back. He said the doctors in Harborwick recommended you have total isolation for a few days to stabilize. He said we were making it worse by being there. I closed my eyes. He had flown them out. He had put them on a plane before the sun came up to make sure they couldn't double back. Mom, I said, keeping my voice steady, I am not in a hospital. I am not unstable. I am standing in a law office in downtown Harborwick. I got married yesterday. There was a long silence on the other end, then the sound of a sharp intake of breath. What? Denise whispered. But Martin said. Martin lied. Mom, he lied to everyone. He told you I was sick so you wouldn't come to the venue. No, she said. The word was a plea. No, he wouldn't. He was so worried. Ellie, he was crying. You know your father never cries. He sat us down in that room and he had tears in his eyes. He said the stress had finally broken you. He was performing. I said, Mom, listen to me. He forged my signature. He spoofed your phone numbers. It is not possible, she insisted. But her voice was losing its conviction. She was fighting to keep her world intact, fighting to believe the man she had shared a bed with for 35 years wasn't a monster. He told us. She started. then stopped. "What?" I asked. "What did he tell you?" "He said you didn't want us there," she whispered. The hurt in her voice was so raw, so physical. It made my own chest ache. "He said you told the doctors that we were the trigger, that you screamed at him on the phone and said you never wanted to see us again." I slid down the wall until I was crouching on the floor. "He used my voice," I said. "He used me to break your heart." I didn't believe him at first. Denise said, crying now, but he was so calm. He said, "Denise, we have to respect her wishes. If we go there, we are hurting her, and I just wanted to help you." "Ellie, I know." "Mom," I said, "I know. Listen to me." I said, forcing strength into my voice. "I need you to do something. Is he with you?" "No," she said. "He stayed behind. He said he had to meet with the medical team to settle the bill. He put us on the plane and said he would drive back tomorrow. Of course he did. He was still in Harborwick. He was still hunting. Mom, I need you to go home, lock the door, and do not sign anything. Do you understand? If he sends you a document, if he asks for a password, you tell him you have a migraine and you go to bed." "Ellie, what is happening?" she asked. "I think Dad spent the money." "Mom, I think he spent it all." I hung up before she could ask more questions. I couldn't bear to hear her shatter any further. When I walked back into the office, Graham was standing by the window, looking out at the street. He looked grim. "What is it?" I asked. Graham turned. He held his phone in his hand. "I just heard back from a colleague. He said, someone in the risk department at Northbridge." I sat down, bracing myself. "You know how I told you there was a pending audit?" Graham asked. "The one involving the regional bank that your father's firm represents?" "Yes. My colleague confirmed the scope of the audit." Graham said, "They are looking at unsecured loans issued to shell companies, companies that have no employees, no products, just a mailing address. And one of the companies flagged for review is listed as a charitable entity," Graham said, "the Maple Crest Heritage Foundation." I looked at Nina. She raised an eyebrow. "The foundation," I said, "the one he wants me to transfer the trust into, if he moves the trust assets into the foundation." Graham said, "He can use that capital to cover the holes in the foundation's ledger before the auditors get there. He is robbing Peter to pay Paul. But Peter is you, and Paul is a bank fraud investigation. And where do you fit in?" I asked. Graham's jaw tightened. "I work in compliance. Ellie, if I became his son-in-law, and if I saw the books, or if the bank realized I was connected to him, I would have to report it. Or I would be complicit. He didn't just want to stop the wedding. I realized he wanted to destroy your credibility. That is why he told the wedding planner you were forcing me. That is why he is whispering to people that you are abusive. He needs you to be the villain so that if you ever report him, it looks like a vendetta." Graham nodded. "He is trying to kill two birds with one stone. Save his fraud scheme and discredit the witness." I felt a sudden, fierce surge of anger. It wasn't the cold dread of the morning. It was hot. It was volcanic. "He is not going to do this to us." I said. I looked at Nina. "What do we do?" Nina folded her hands. "We have two options. We can play defense, wait for him to make a move, and try to block it. Or we can play offense." "Offense," I said immediately. "Then you need to trigger the accounting." Nina said, "You need to file a formal demand for the records of the Alderbrook Trust. Once that letter is sent, the clock starts. He has 30 days to produce the books. If he doesn't, or if the books are cooked, we petition the court to remove him as trustee. Do it." I said. "Wait," Graham said. "Ellie, once we send that, there is no going back. This isn't a family argument anymore. This is a legal declaration of war." "I know." I said. "There is one more thing," Graham said. "Jared, what about him? He texted me while you were on the phone with your mom." "He is still in town. He didn't get on the plane." "Where is he?" "He is at the motel by the interstate. The cheap one. He says he needs to see you." We found Jared sitting on the edge of the bed in a room that smelled of stale cigarettes. He looked terrible. His eyes were red, his shirt rumpled. When he saw me, He didn't stand up. He just put his head in his hands. I am sorry. Ellie, he mumbled. I am so sorry. I sat down in the plastic chair opposite him. Graham stood by the door, arms crossed. Why didn't you get on the plane? Jared? I asked. I couldn't, he said. I threw up in the terminal. I told Mom to go ahead. He looked up at me. He made me sign it. Ellie, sign what? At the office suite. He said, after he told us you were in the hospital. He pulled me into the side room. He had a document. What did it say? I don't know, Jared admitted, looking away. It was full of legal words. He told me it was a medical proxy. He said that since you were incapacitated, the family needed to appoint a guardian to make decisions for you, and since Mom was too emotional, he said it should be him. You signed a guardianship paper? I asked, horrified. He said it was temporary, Jared cried. He said it was just to get you released to his care. But, Ellie, he promised me something. I waited. I knew this part. There was always a transaction. He said if I signed it, he would fix the loan. Jared whispered, the construction loan for my business, the one that is 3 months overdue. He said he would make it disappear. I looked at my brother. He was 29, but in that moment, he looked 10. He was weak. Yes, but he was also a victim. Martin had trained him to be this way. Dependent, anxious, always looking for a bailout. He bought you, Jared, I said softly. He bought your signature to strip me of my rights. Jared began to weep. I was scared. Ellie, I am about to lose the business. I stood up. I walked over to him and put a hand on his shoulder. It is okay, I said. He looked up, shocked. It is? No, I said. It is not okay, but I forgive you, because you are going to help me fix it. How? He sniffed. You are going to write down exactly what happened. I said, you are going to write a statement that says you were under duress, that you were lied to about my medical condition, and that he bribed you with loan forgiveness. I can't, Jared stammered. He will ruin me. He is already ruining you. Jared, I said, he is drowning you so he can use you as a life raft. I looked at Graham. He nodded. We drove back to Nina's office with Jared in the back seat. He was silent, staring out the window. When we got back to the office, Nina was waiting with a drafted letter. This is the formal demand, she said. It cites the specific statutes of the Pennsylvania Uniform Trust Act. It demands a full accounting of all assets, income, and disbursements of the Alderbrook Trust from the date of Harlan Young's death to the present. She handed me a pen. Are you sure? She asked. I looked at the paper. It was just a piece of paper, but it was heavier than it looked. It was the end of Thanksgiving dinners. It was the end of pretending. It was the end of the father I had tried so hard to please. I thought about the empty chairs. I thought about my mother crying in a hotel room in Philadelphia. I thought about the letters my grandfather wrote that I never received. I didn't hesitate. I signed my name, Eleanor Marie Young. I handed it back to Nina. Send it, I said. Nina nodded and walked to the fax machine. It screeched as it connected, a high-pitched wail that sounded like a siren. I watched the paper feed through the machine. Graham put his arm around me. It is done, he said. Not yet, I said, watching the confirmation page print out. Now he knows we are coming. I turned to Jared, who was sitting in the corner, looking at his hands. Jared, I said, did Dad say anything else to you? Anything about the lake house? Jared looked up. He frowned. Yeah, actually, when he was talking about the loan, he made a call. Who did he call? I don't know, Jared said, but he mentioned a contractor. He said, make sure the fence is high. I don't want anyone seeing the excavation. Excavation? I asked. Yeah, Jared said. He said, dig it up. Get it out of there before she asks for the keys. I looked at Graham. The blood drained from my face. He isn't just hiding money. I said, he is burying something, or unburying it. We need to go to Alderbrook Landing. I said, now? Graham asked. Right now. I said, before he fills in the hole. Nina looked up from her desk. Be careful, Ellie, she warned. If he is desperate enough to fake a psychotic break for his daughter, he is desperate enough to do anything. I know. I said. I picked up my purse. I am counting on it. My phone rang at 10 in the morning on Sunday. I was sitting on the edge of the hotel bed, staring at a lukewarm cup of coffee. When the screen lit up, I didn't need to look at the name to know who it was. The vibration felt different, heavier, insistent. Martin Young. I let it ring 3 times. My instinct, honed over 3 decades of conditioning, was to pick up on the first ring, to apologize for the delay, to breathless ask what he needed. But I wasn't that person anymore. That person died yesterday in a glass house overlooking the ocean. I answered on the 4th ring. I didn't say hello. I just held the phone to my ear and breathed. Ellie! His voice came through the speaker. It was smooth, rich, the baritone he used when he was closing a closing argument or reading a scripture at Christmas. We need to talk privately. He didn't ask if I was okay. He didn't ask why I had filed a legal demand for accounting an hour ago. He didn't ask about the wedding he had sabotaged. He just issued a command. I am not meeting you privately. Dad, I said. My voice was steady, surprising me. There was a pause, a silence that I knew he was using to recalibrate. He was assessing my tone, looking for the crack in the armor. I am in Harborwick, he said. I stayed behind to handle the fallout of your situation. I am at the Blackwood Coffee House on the waterfront. Meet me there in 30 minutes. Alone. I am bringing Graham. I said. No, he said. This is family business. It is messy enough without outsiders. Graham is my husband. I said. He is family. There was a sharp exhale on the other end. Do not bring him, Ellie. If you want answers about the trust, you will come alone. 30 minutes. The line went dead. I looked at Graham. He was buttoning a fresh shirt, his face drawn and tired. He wants to meet, I said. Alone. Graham stopped. Where? The Blackwood. It is public. It is right on the wharf. I am coming. Graham said immediately. You can't sit at the table. I said. If you sit at the table, he will shut down. He won't say a word. He will just perform. I need to get him to talk. Graham didn't like it. I could see the muscles in his jaw working. I will be at the next table. Graham said, me and Marin. If he even raises his voice, we are stepping in. We arrived at the waterfront 20 minutes later. The air was thick with salt and the smell of frying fish from the tourist traps down the pier. The Blackwood was a high-end roastery, full of exposed brick and people typing on laptops. It was neutral ground, safe ground. I saw him immediately. Martin Young was sitting at a corner table by the window. He was wearing a navy blazer over a crisp white shirt. No tie. He looked immaculate. While I felt like I had been dragged behind a truck, he looked like he had just stepped out of a spa. He was reading a newspaper, a pair of reading glasses perched on the end of his nose. I walked over. Graham and Marin peeled off, taking a table near the espresso machine, close enough to see but far enough to give the illusion of privacy. I pulled out the metal chair opposite him. It scraped against the floor, a harsh sound that made a few people look up. Martin didn't look up. He folded the newspaper precisely, creased it, and set it down. Then he took off his glasses and looked at me. His eyes were blue, clear, and utterly devoid of guilt. You look tired. Eleanor, he said. I didn't answer. I just stared at him. I ordered you a chamomile tea, he said, gesturing to a cup on the table. You always liked it when your stomach was upset. I pushed the cup away. Why weren't you there? I asked. He sighed, a long, suffering sound. He leaned back in his chair, crossing his hands over his stomach. I made a judgment call. He said, a difficult one. But that is what fathers do. We make the hard choices. You lied to everyone, I said. You told Mom I was in a psych ward. You told the guests. God knows what you told the guests. I told them you were unwell, he said calmly. And looking at you now, looking at the way you are vibrating with rage, I don't think I was wrong. You were spiraling. Ellie, the wedding planning, the stress. I could see it breaking you. I stepped in to prevent a public spectacle. I laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. You prevented a spectacle? Dad, there were 6 empty chairs in the front row. It was the biggest spectacle of the year. He narrowed his eyes. Yes, and that was your choice. You proceeded. You embarrassed the family. Ellie. You walked down that aisle knowing we weren't there, knowing how it would look. You chose to humiliate your mother and me because you possess a stubborn streak that you have never learned to control. I felt the old shame flare up, the reflex to apologize, to fix it. I embarrassed the family. That was the ultimate sin in the young household. But then I remembered the photocopy in my purse. I remembered the date. You didn't stay away to save face. I said, you stayed away to stop the clock. Martin picked up his own coffee. He took a slow sip. You are talking about the trust, he said. I am talking about the Alderbrook Trust. I said, the one Harlan left me, the one that vested yesterday. He set the cup down. He didn't look worried. He looked disappointed. That money was never yours. Ellie, he said softly. Not really. Harlan was a brilliant man, but he was senile at the end. He wrote that document when his mind was going. He saddled a 12-year-old girl with a burden she couldn't possibly understand. It is not a burden, I said. It is an inheritance. It is a responsibility, he snapped, his voice rising just enough to be sharp. Do you have any idea what it takes to manage a portfolio like that? The taxes? The maintenance on the property? I have spent 20 years handling it for you. I have spent my own time, my own resources, protecting you from the weight of it. And this is the thanks I get? A demand letter from some strip mall lawyer? He was doing it. He was twisting reality. He was turning his theft into martyrdom. He was the hero who had sacrificed himself to carry the heavy gold bars so I wouldn't hurt my back. I saw the security footage. Dad, I said. He blinked. Once, I saw you at the glass house. I continued. I saw you switch the binders. I spoke to Kelsey. She told me you ordered the contingency plan. Martin smiled. It was a faint, patronizing smile. Kelsey is a nervous young woman, he said. She misunderstood. I was giving her instructions for the music, and as for the footage, well, context is everything, isn't it? He leaned forward. The smile vanished. Listen to me. Ellie, you are playing a dangerous game. You are listening to people who don't know our family. You are letting this husband of yours whisper poison in your ear. Don't talk about Graham. I said, I will talk about him, Martin said, because he is the problem. He is the one pushing you to this. He sees a payday. He sees a way to cash out. Graham doesn't care about the money. I said, everyone cares about the money, Martin said, especially a man like that. A mid-level compliance officer? Please. He sees the trust as his lottery ticket. He leaned in closer. His voice dropped to a whisper. If you keep fighting me on this, Ellie, you are going to hurt people you love. And I don't mean me. I can handle myself. I mean him. I went cold. Is that a threat? It is a fact, Martin said. The world is a complicated place. Reputations are fragile. If you insist on dragging our family business into the light, you might find that the light shines on things you didn't intend. He checked his watch. He stood up. I have an appointment, he said. I suggest you withdraw that demand letter by the end of the day. If you do, we can sit down like civilized people and discuss a governance plan that protects you. If you don't... He let the sentence hang in the air. He dropped a $20 bill on the table. Think about it, Ellie, for everyone's well-being. He walked out. He didn't look at Graham. He walked straight past him, stepped out into the sunlight, and disappeared into the crowd. I sat there for a long time, staring at the untouched chamomile tea. My hands were shaking. Graham and Marin rushed over. What did he say? Graham asked. Sliding into the chair Martin had vacated. I looked at Graham. I looked at his kind, worried face. He threatened you. I said. Graham frowned. What do you mean? He said reputations are fragile. I whispered. He said if I keep fighting, people I love will get hurt. Graham's phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. Graham, check your phone, I said. A sudden, sick feeling washed over me. He pulled it out. He looked at the screen. His expression shifted from concern to confusion, and then to shock. "What is it?" Marin asked. "It is an email," Graham said. "From my boss, the director of compliance at Northbridge." "Read it," I said. Graham cleared his throat. "Graham, please do not log into the system on Monday. We have received an anonymous tip regarding a conflict of interest involving your personal finances and a client account. We are initiating an internal review. HR will be in touch regarding your suspension pending investigation." The table went silent. "He did it," I whispered. "He actually did it." "He contacted my employer," Graham said, his voice hollow. "He told them I was involved in financial irregularities. He is trying to get you fired." Marin said, horrified. "No," I said. "He is trying to get him discredited. He knows Graham is an auditor. He knows Graham could testify against him. If Graham is fired for fraud, his testimony is worthless." I looked at Graham. I expected to see fear. I expected him to panic. This was his career. This was everything he had worked for. But Graham slowly put the phone down. He looked at the door where Martin had exited. "He is scared." Graham said, "What?" I asked. "He wouldn't do this if he wasn't terrified." Graham said, "You don't blow up a son-in-law's career over a misunderstanding. You do it to kill a witness." Graham turned to me. He took my hand. "He just made a mistake." "Ellie?" "How?" I asked. "Because now I have nothing to lose." Graham said, "And I have a lot of free time to help you destroy him." We didn't go back to the hotel. We went to Marin's apartment in the city. It felt safer than the hotel. Less exposed. Marin made strong coffee. I sat on the couch, replaying the conversation in the cafe. "You embarrassed the family." The phone rang again. It wasn't Martin. It was Aunt Lorna. I put it on speaker. "Aunt Lorna?" I asked. "Ellie?" Her voice was a whisper. "Are you safe?" "I am safe." I said, "Where are you?" "I am in the car," she said. "I made your uncle pull over. We are on the turnpike, heading back to Maple Crest. Did Dad send you back?" "Yes," she said. "He said the crisis was contained. But Ellie, I found something." "What did you find?" "When we were at that office, the Bayline place," Lorna said, "Martin gave us all folders. He said it was information about your condition and the treatment plan. I was so upset I didn't open mine. I just shoved it in my purse." "And?" I asked. "I just looked at it." Lorna said, "It isn't medical information. It is a legal document. It is called a family governance plan." My stomach tightened. That was the phrase he used at the cafe. It says Lorna paused, and I could hear paper rustling. It says that access to the Alderbrook Landing property is restricted to approved family members who are in good standing with the trust protector. And it names Martin as the protector. It is a lockout clause. Graham said. "There is more," Lorna said. "There is a clause here about you. It says that in the event of your marriage, your spouse must sign a non-disclosure agreement regarding all family assets, or else your beneficiary status is suspended." I closed my eyes. A paper prison. He prepared these in advance. I said, "He printed these folders before the wedding. He planned to corner us, maybe at the reception, maybe the next day, and force us to sign them." "Ellie," Lorna whispered, "I think he has been planning this for months. The dates on these pages, they are from January. Thank you, Aunt Lorna." I said, "Keep that folder. Do not let him see it." "I won't," she said. "I love you. Honey, I am so sorry we left. It wasn't your fault." I said, I hung up. "He has been building a cage." I said, "Documents, clauses, NDAs. He wanted to trap me in a legal web where I couldn't move without his permission. We need to get to Nina." Graham said, "We need to see what the accounting looks like." We went back to Carver Lane in the afternoon. The office was quiet, the Sunday sun slanting through the blinds. Nina was already there, surrounded by stacks of paper. She looked up as we entered. She looked grim. I got a response. She said, "Already?" I asked. "The 30 days. "Not from your father," Nina said. "From the bank. I have a contact at the regional branch where the trust account is held." I called in a favor. I asked for a snapshot of the transaction history, just the last 6 months. She slid a piece of paper across the desk. "Look at the withdrawals," she said. I looked. It was a list of numbers. $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, all going to the same payee. MCHF Operations, Maple Crest Heritage Foundation. I said, "He is draining the trust." Nina said, "He is moving cash from the Alderbrook Trust into the foundation." "Why?" Graham asked. "Because the foundation is a nonprofit." Nina said, "He chairs it. He controls the board. If the money is in the trust, it belongs to Ellie as of yesterday. If it is in the foundation, it belongs to the public good, and he is the steward. He is laundering your inheritance into his own charity, but that is illegal." I said, "That is self-dealing. It is absolutely illegal." Nina said, "It is a breach of fiduciary duty. It is theft." I stared at the numbers. This was my grandfather's money. Money he earned working in a steel mill. Money he saved for 50 years so his family would be safe. And Martin was using it to buy prestige. He was using it to put his name on park benches and scholarship funds. He is stealing my future to buy his reputation. I said, "I need to talk to my mother." I called her again. She answered on the first ring. She was back in the house in Maple Crest. I could hear the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway behind her. "Mom." I said, "Ellie," she said. She sounded exhausted. "Your father just got home. He is in the study. He is destroying papers." "Ellie." I gripped the phone. "What?" "He has the shredder running," she said. "He walked in, didn't say a word to me, and went straight to the study. I can hear it whirring." "Mom, you have to stop him." I said, "I can't," she whispered. "You know I can't go in there when the door is closed." "Mom," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "I know he told you he was protecting you. I know he told you that he handled the money so you wouldn't have to worry. He did." She said, "He always said I wasn't good with numbers. He said he wanted me to have a peaceful life. That wasn't protection." "Mom," I said, "that was control. He made you helpless so you would never leave him. And now he is trying to do the same thing to me." There was a sob on the other end. "I know," she said. "I think I have known for a long time. I need you to be brave." "Mom," I said, "you don't have to go into the study. You don't have to fight him. But I need you to tell me something." "What?" "The key to the filing cabinet." I said, "The gray one in the garage. The one he keeps the old tax returns in. Where's the spare key?" "It is in the hollow fake rock in the garden," she said automatically. "By the hydrangeas." "Thank you." I said, "Ellie?" She said, "What are you going to do?" "I am going to get your house back." "Mom," I said. I hung up. I turned to Nina. "He is shredding documents." I said, "Then we have to move now." Nina said. I took a deep breath. "I want to file the complaint." I said, "Not just the demand for accounting. I want to file a complaint with the State Bar Association. I want to report him for ethics violations." Nina nodded. "That will trigger an immediate inquiry. It will freeze him, and I want the bank records." I said, "I want a subpoena for the foundation's accounts. I want to see where that money went after it left the trust." "That is a fraud investigation." Nina said, "You are accusing your father of a felony." I looked at the window. I thought about Graham losing his job. I thought about the spoofed texts. I thought about the 6 empty chairs. He isn't my father anymore. I said, "He is the defendant. File it." Nina began typing. The sound of the keys clacking was the only sound in the room. Graham stood up and walked over to me. He put his hands on my shoulders. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Once we do this, the town, the neighbors, everyone will know. Let them know." I said. I looked at him. "He tried to take my family." "Graham, he tried to take my money. He tried to take your job." I paused. "But he made a mistake." "What mistake?" Graham asked. "He forgot that I am his daughter." I said, "He forgot that he taught me how to win." I turned back to Nina. "Add one more thing to the complaint." I said, "What?" Nina asked. "Request an emergency injunction to prevent the sale or alteration of real property." I said, "You mean Alderbrook Landing?" Yes, I said. If he is shredding papers, he is trying to erase the trail. But he can't shred a house. He is hiding something at that lake house, and I'm going to find it before he does. Nina hit print. The printer whirred. I signed the complaint. The ink was black and permanent. I looked at the date. It was Sunday. By Monday morning, Martin Young would be at war. But this time, the enemy wasn't a scared little girl. It was the woman he had created. By Tuesday morning, the story of my wedding had mutated. It wasn't just a local scandal anymore. It was a digital wildfire. Fed by the dry timber of small-town gossip and my father's expertly struck match, I made the mistake of looking at social media while Graham was in the shower. I scrolled through the Maple Crest community page, a digital bulletin board usually reserved for lost cats and complaints about potholes. Today, it was all about me. So sad to hear about the young girl. One comment read, "Mental health is such a silent struggle. I heard she had a complete breakdown at the altar. I heard the husband forced the ceremony." Another replied, "The family tried to intervene, but he wouldn't let them on the property. Control freak. Martin must be devastated." A third person wrote, "He has done everything for those kids." I dropped the phone on the duvet as if it were hot. The narrative was moving faster than the truth. My father wasn't just hiding his crime. He was rewriting the victim. He was painting me as unstable and Graham as predatory. A story that perfectly explained why a loving father would be absent. He had been pushed away by a daughter who had lost her mind. It was the same old song. Ellie is difficult. Ellie is emotional. Ellie remembers things wrong. Graham came out of the bathroom. He was dressed in jeans and a t-shirt, not his usual suit. The suspension from Northbridge Financial had started officially at 9 o'clock. He looked like he hadn't slept. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his movements were brittle, like a man trying very hard not to shatter. "I am sorry," I said, looking at him. "I am so sorry." "Graham." He sat on the edge of the bed and tied his shoes. He didn't look at me. "Don't apologize," he said. "We knew he would play dirty. This isn't dirty." I said, "This is nuclear. He took your job. He put me on leave." Graham corrected, though his voice lacked conviction. "Once we prove the fraud, I will get reinstated." But we both knew that in the world of compliance, the accusation was often enough to leave a stain that never washed out. Even if he was cleared, he would always be the guy who was investigated for financial irregularities. My father had marked him. "I need to see my brother and sister," I said. Graham looked up. "Why?" "They left you." "Because they are drowning," I said, "and they are the only ones who can help me sink the ship." I met Tessa and Jared at a diner 10 miles outside of Harborwick. I chose it because it was anonymous. Chrome counters, sticky menus, and a waitress who didn't care who the Youngs were. They were sitting in a booth in the back. Tessa looked small. She was usually the vibrant one, the one with the perfect blowout and the loud laugh. But today she looked gray. Jared was stirring a cup of black coffee, staring into the vortex of liquid. When I slid into the booth, they both flinched. I didn't yell. I didn't throw water in their faces. I just put my hands on the table. "Tell me," I said. Tessa looked at me, her eyes filling with tears. "Ellie, we didn't know. Tell me about the text." "Tessa," I said, "the one Marin showed me. For everyone's well-being, you don't talk like that." "I didn't write it," Tessa whispered. She pulled a napkin from the dispenser and shredded it. "Dad took our phones." "When?" "At the hotel," she said. "Before we left for the venue, he said there was a security concern. He said someone was harassing the family and he needed to have the devices swept by his IT guy. He took them for an hour. When he gave them back, he had sent the messages." I finished. Tessa nodded. "But Ellie, when he told us you didn't want us there, I believed him." The admission hung in the air, smelling of grease and old coffee. "Why?" I asked, my voice cracking. "Why would you believe I wanted to get married without you?" "Because you leave." "Ellie!" Tessa snapped, her voice rising suddenly. "You always leave. You moved to Boston. You stopped coming to Sunday dinners. You missed Mom's birthday last year. I was working, I said defensively. You were escaping, Tessa said. And we get it. We know Dad is heavy. We know he is a lot. But you got out. You left us there with him. So when he said you finally cut the cord completely, when he said you wanted to start your new life without the baggage of your old one, it sounded like you. I sat back, the anger I had been nursing, the righteous indignation, deflated. I looked at my siblings. I saw Jared, terrified of his own shadow, owing money to a father who used debt as a leash. I saw Tessa, resentful and abandoned, believing that my survival was a rejection of her. I didn't leave you, I said softly. I was trying to build a place where we could all go. I reached across the table and took Tessa's hand. She didn't pull away. He spoofed the numbers. I said, he forged my signature. He told Mom I was in a psych ward. Jared looked up. He told us you were sedated. He lied. Jared, about everything. And the reason he lied isn't because I'm crazy. It is because yesterday, the trust fund vestment date hit, and he has spent the money. Jared's eyes went wide. The Alderbrook money? I think so. I said, and if we don't stop him, he is going to take the rest. He is going to take the house. He is going to take whatever is left of our future to pay for his past. I need you. I said, I need you to stop being his children and start being witnesses. Tessa wiped her face. What do we do? You tell the truth. I said, to a lawyer. Today, after the diner. I went back to Nina Carver's office. The atmosphere there had shifted from a quiet legal practice to a war room. Boxes of files were stacked on the floor. Nina was on the phone, her voice sharp and authoritative. When she hung up, she looked at me and Graham, who was sitting in the corner with his laptop. We have a hit, Nina said. She pulled a piece of paper from a folder. The bank records for the foundation are still pending. She said, but I did a search on public court records involving Martin's firm. I looked for settlements. And? I asked. 3 years ago. Martin represented a client named Victor Salinger. Nina said, a real estate mogul. There was a malpractice suit filed against Martin's firm. Salinger claimed Martin missed a filing deadline that cost him millions. I never heard about this. I said, because it was settled out of court. Nina said, very quietly, the suit was withdrawn. She tapped the paper. I found a corresponding transfer in the partial trust records we have. She said, a withdrawal of $400,000. It was labeled property maintenance, but the date matches the week the Salinger lawsuit was dropped. He paid off the client, Graham said. Standing up, he used the trust money to pay the settlement so his malpractice insurance wouldn't go up, or so the partners wouldn't find out he screwed up. He plugged the hole in his reputation with my grandfather's money. I said, and that is just one transaction. Nina said, if he did it once, he did it 10 times. He has been treating the trust like a personal piggy bank to fix his mistakes. I felt a cold rage settle in my chest. It wasn't just greed. It was vanity. He stole from his daughter to maintain the illusion that he was a perfect lawyer. I need to go to Alderbrook, I said. Ellie, Nina warned, the injunction hasn't been granted yet. Technically, he is still the trustee. I don't care. I said, I am the beneficiary, and I am going home. Graham drove. We took the old coast road, the one that wound through the pines and the salt marshes. I hadn't been to Alderbrook Landing in 15 years. In my memory, it was a sanctuary, a sprawling Victorian house with peeling yellow paint and a porch that wrapped all the way around. Looking out over the gray Atlantic water of the inlet, when we pulled up to the gate, my heart stopped. The gate was new. It was high, black iron, imposing and sharp, and behind it, the driveway was churned up with mud. There were trucks, 2 of them, white pickups with a logo on the side. Bright Marsh Development. Stop the car, I said. I jumped out before Graham had fully braked. I ran to the gate. It was locked with a heavy chain. Hey, I yelled. Hey. A man in a hard hat walked down the driveway. He looked annoyed. Private property. Lady, he shouted. No trespassing. I am Eleanor Young. I shouted back. This is my property. Open this gate. The man stopped. He looked at a clipboard, then back at me. Young? He asked. You related to Martin? I am his daughter. Open it. He hesitated, then unlocked the padlock. The chain rattled as it fell. I pushed the gate open and marched up the driveway. Graham right behind me. The lawn was gone. The beautiful, overgrown garden where I used to catch fireflies was a pit of mud. Survey stakes with orange ribbons were hammered into the ground in a grid pattern. What are you doing? I demanded. We are prepping the subdivision, the man said. Surveying for the lot lines. Mr. Young said we could start clearing the trees next week. Subdivision? I felt the blood drain from my face. Yeah, the man said. We are splitting the parcel into 6 lots. Luxury condos. The main house is coming down on the 1st. My knees almost gave out. Graham caught me. He is selling it, I whispered. He isn't just selling it. He is erasing it. The main house stood at the top of the hill. It looked tired. The windows were dark. The paint stripped by the wind. It looked like a ghost. I need to go inside. I said. The contractor shrugged. I don't have the keys to the house, just the grounds. Mr. Young said the house was empty. It is not empty, I said. I walked up the porch steps. The wood creaked under my feet. A familiar sound, a sound from my childhood. I tried the front door, locked. I went around the back, to the mudroom door, locked. I remembered something, a loose window in the pantry. Harlan used to curse at it because it rattled in the wind. I shimmied up the trellis. Ignoring Graham's protest, I pushed on the pantry window. It was stuck with paint, but the wood was rotten. I shoved hard. The frame splintered, and the sash slid up. I climbed inside. The house smelled of dust and stagnation. Sheets covered the furniture like shrouds. I walked through the kitchen, my footsteps echoing on the linoleum. I went to the study. This was the room my father had claimed for himself after Harlan died. This was the room he had locked. I didn't have a key, but I had rage. I kicked the door. It was solid oak. It didn't budge. Graham appeared behind me. He had found a crowbar in the mudroom. Allow me, he said. He jammed the metal bar into the frame and heaved. The wood groaned. He pushed again. Putting his shoulder into it, with a loud crack, the jam gave way. The door swung open. The study was not empty. It was chaotic. Papers were strewn everywhere. The shredder my mother had heard was sitting in the corner, overflowing with white ribbons of confetti. He had been here, recently, but the filing cabinets were empty. The drawers hung open like hungry mouths. He took the records, I said. He cleared it out. I looked around the room. The mahogany desk, the leather chair, and in the corner, a heavy built-in wooden cabinet with glass doors. It was locked. I took the crowbar from Graham. I smashed the glass. Shards rained down on the carpet. I reached in and unlocked the latch. The shelves were empty, except for a small metal box tucked in the very back. It was rusted. It wasn't a modern safe. It was an old tackle box, the kind Harlan used for fishing. I pulled it out. It was heavy. I sat on the floor and popped the latch. It wasn't money. It wasn't ledgers. It was letters. A stack of envelopes, yellowed with age, bound with a rubber band that crumbled when I touched it. I looked at the handwriting. It was jagged, forceful. Harlan's hand. To Ellie, to be read when she is 18. To Ellie, to be read when she is 21. To Ellie, to be read on her wedding day. He never gave them to me. I whispered. Dad never gave them to me. I opened the one marked Wedding Day. My hands were shaking so hard I tore the envelope. My dearest Ellie, if you are reading this, you have found someone to stand beside you. I hope he is strong. He will need to be. I am writing this because I am dying, and I see things clearly now. I see your father. I love him. He is my son, but he is a man with a hole in his pocket. He cannot hold on to things. He needs to be admired more than he needs to be honest. I have set up the trust not to give him control, but to keep him from devouring you. I know he will try to hide this from you. I know he will try to manage you. He will tell you it is for your own good. Do not believe him. Do not trust Martin with the money. He will spend it to paint a portrait of himself. The land is yours. Ellie, Alderbrook is the anchor. Don't let him pull it up. Love, Grandpa. I put the letter down. Tears were streaming down my face. Hot and fast. He knew. I said, Harlan knew. I looked at Graham. My father didn't become controlling because I was difficult. He didn't lock me down because I was a rebellious teenager. He did it because he knew that the moment I had agency, the moment I saw the truth, his supply would be cut off. He spent 20 years gaslighting me to cover a theft that Harlan predicted before I was even in high school. Graham knelt beside me. He read the letter. We have him, Graham said. This proves intent. This proves he suppressed the grantor's wishes. My phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. I answered it. Hello? Ellie. It was Martin. Where are you? I asked. I'm at the house. He said. In Maple Crest. Your mother tells me you are upset. I am at Alderbrook. Dad, I am sitting in the study. I found the letters. There was a silence. A long, heavy silence. I could hear his breathing. Those letters were the ramblings of a sick old man. He said, I spared you from them. You spared yourself. I said, Ellie? He said. His tone changed. It softened. It became the voice of the reasonable man. The negotiator. We can keep doing this. We can keep tearing each other apart. You can sue me. I can sue your husband. We can spend the next 5 years bleeding money to lawyers. Or, he said, we can fix it. Fix it how? I will give you a wedding. He said, a real one. I will rent the ballroom at the Ritz. I will invite everyone, the governor, the partners, everyone. I will walk you down the aisle. I will give a toast that will make you cry. We can be a family again. Ellie, we can put this ugly chapter behind us. And in exchange? I asked. You withdraw the complaint, he said. You sign a confidentiality agreement regarding the trust, and you let the sale of the land proceed. The money from the development will set you up for life. We split it, 50-50. I closed my eyes. I imagined it. Walking down the aisle with my father, seeing him smile at me with pride, the validation I had craved for 33 years. The family reunited, no more fighting, no more shame. It was everything I had ever wanted, and it was a lie. He was selling me my own love back to me. He was ransoming my childhood. Ellie? He asked. Are you there? I am here, I said. Come home, he said. Let's have dinner. Just you and me. We can sign the papers and be done with it. I looked at Graham. I looked at the letters from Harlan. I looked at the hole in the wall where the safe had been. I almost said yes. The little girl in me, the one who just wanted her dad to look at her without disappointment, almost screamed yes. But then I remembered the text. For everyone's well-being, I remembered the 6 empty chairs. I remembered Graham's face when he read the email suspending him. I am not coming to dinner. Dad? I said, Ellie, don't be dramatic. I am not being dramatic. I said, I am being precise. I am not withdrawing the complaint. I am not signing your NDA. And if you touch one more tree on this property, I will have you arrested for destruction of evidence. You are making a mistake, he said. His voice turned cold. You are going to lose everything. I already lost my father. I said, the rest is just paperwork. I hung up. I stood up. I wiped my face. We need to go back. I said to Graham, where? To Nina's. We need to get everyone there. Mom, Tessa, Jared, Aunt Lorna. Why? Graham asked. Because he is going to come for us now. I said, he tried the bribe. Now he will try the hammer. We need to be ready. We met at Nina's office at 8 o'clock that night. It was a somber gathering. My mother sat in the corner, looking like she had aged 10 years in 2 days. Aunt Lorna was holding her hand. Tessa and Jared looked nervous, but they were there. I stood at the head of the table. Thank you for coming, I said. Mom looked up. Ellie, your father is pacing the house. He is talking to himself. I have never seen him like this. He is cornered. Mom, I said, and a cornered animal bites. I placed a stack of papers on the table. Nina drafted these, I said. These are sworn affidavits. I looked at each of them. Jared. This one states that you were coerced into signing the guardianship paper under false pretenses and financial duress. Tessa. This one confirms that your phone was confiscated and the text messages were sent without your knowledge. Mom. Aunt Lorna. Yours state that you were misled about my medical condition and transported across state lines based on a lie. The room was silent. This isn't just venting. I said, this is legal testimony. If you sign these, you are going on the record. You are testifying against him. Tessa picked up the pen first. Her hand was shaking. But she signed, for the text, she said, and for making me think you left me. Jared signed next, for the loan. He said quietly, Aunt Lorna signed with a flourish. For the locked door at Bayline, she said. My mother hesitated. She looked at the paper. She looked at me. He is my husband. Ellie, she whispered. He isn't the man you married. Mom, I said, the man you married wouldn't have done this to your daughter. She looked down at her wedding ring. She twisted it on her finger. Then, slowly, she picked up the pen. For the empty chairs, she said, and she signed. I took the papers. I handed them to Nina. File them. I said. Nina nodded. She looked at me with a mixture of respect and fear. You know what happens tomorrow? She asked. I nodded. Tomorrow. The Bar Association gets the complaint. Tomorrow. The bank gets the subpoena. Tomorrow. The injunction hits the developer. Tomorrow. Martin Young wakes up and realizes he doesn't own the world anymore. I walked to the window and looked out at the streetlights of Harborwick. I felt hollowed out, exhausted, and incredibly sad. But for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of him. He had spent 33 years building a fortress of lies. I had just lit the fuse. The legal complaint hit my father's desk on a Monday morning. By Monday afternoon, the silence from Maple Crest was so loud, it felt like a physical pressure in my ears. I was sitting in Nina Carver's conference room, watching the rain streak against the window. We were waiting for a counter move. My father was a chess player. He didn't flip the board unless he had no other moves. I expected a motion to dismiss. I expected a call from a senior partner at his firm threatening a defamation suit. I didn't expect the phone call from my mother. It came at 4 o'clock. When I answered, there was no greeting, just the sound of jagged, terrified breathing. Mom, I said, gripping the phone. He is breaking things, she whispered. I stood up, signaling to Graham. What do you mean? He read the complaint, Denise said. Her voice was trembling so hard I could barely understand her. He came home early. He walked into the kitchen, picked up the crystal vase on the island, the one from your grandmother, and he threw it into the wall. He didn't say a word. He just threw it. Get out of the house. Mom, I said, get in the car and drive to Aunt Lorna's. He is screaming now. She said, he is in the living room screaming at the television. He is saying that you are ungrateful. He is saying that he built this life for us, and you are burning it down. Ellie, I have never seen his face look like that. It was like looking at a stranger. He is losing control. I said, he is realizing that the narrative isn't working. He said he is going to destroy you. She sobbed. He said if you want a war, he will give you a war that leaves nothing standing. Go to Lorna's. I commanded, do not tell him where you are going. Just go. I stayed on the line until I heard her car door slam and the engine turn over. Only when she was backing out of the driveway did I let myself breathe. I looked at Graham. He is scaring her. I said, he is taking the mask off. Graham didn't look triumphant. He looked sick. This isn't just a legal dispute anymore. Ellie, he said, this is dangerous, as if to punctuate the danger. Nina walked in with a grim expression. She was holding a fax. We have a problem with the land. She said, what is it? Bright Marsh Development just filed an expedited transfer of deed. She said, they are trying to rush the closing. They want to take title to Alderbrook Landing by close of business tomorrow. But we filed for an injunction. I said, it hasn't been signed by a judge yet. Nina said, the court docket is backed up. Martin knows that. He is pushing the sale through before the ink dries on your complaint. If Bright Marsh gets the title, They can demolish the house immediately. They could bulldoze the evidence before we ever get inside to find the rest of the records. I felt a surge of panic. The letters from Harlan were safe, but who knew what else was hidden in the walls of that house? Or buried in the yard? We have to stop the closing. I said, the only way to stop it is to get Martin to withdraw the sale voluntarily, Nina said, or to get him to admit on record that the trust has a clouded title. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was 5:15. Set a meeting. I said, with Martin? Nina asked. He won't meet you. He is throwing vases at walls. He will meet me. I said, tell him I am ready to negotiate. Tell him I am ready to discuss the terms of a settlement. You are not settling, Graham said sharply. No, I said, but he needs to believe I am. Tell him to meet me tomorrow morning. I told Nina. 9 o'clock. Where? Nina asked. His office? No, I said. The courthouse steps? The main entrance? Why there? Because, I said, looking at the rain falling on the gray pavement outside, it is the one place where he still thinks he is a god. And it is the one place where everything is on the record. That night, the air in the hotel room was heavy. Graham was packing a small duffel bag. I watched him fold a shirt, his movements slow and mechanical. Where are you going? I asked. I'm just moving some things to the car. He said, in case we need to leave quickly. I walked over and took the shirt from his hands. Graham, look at me. He looked up. His eyes were full of a deep, aching sadness. Is this fair? He asked. What? This? He said, gesturing to the room, to the legal files scattered on the bed, to the phone that kept buzzing with updates from lawyers. Is it fair to you? To drag you through this? You aren't dragging me. I said, I am the one driving the car. But I am the liability, he said. His voice cracked. Ellie, he took my job. He is destroying my reputation. If we stay together, I am just a target. I am the soft spot in your armor. Maybe if I stepped back, if I let you handle this as a young, without the baggage of a husband he hates. I grabbed his face in my hands. Stop, I said. He hates you because you are the one thing he couldn't buy. I said fiercely. You are not a liability. Graham, you are the proof that I can be loved without conditions. If you leave now, he wins. If you leave now, I am just a lonely girl fighting her dad. With you, I am a family. Graham closed his eyes. He leaned his forehead against mine. I am scared. Ellie, he whispered. I am scared he is going to hurt you. He can't hurt me anymore. I said, I know who he is now. The Harborwick courthouse was a massive stone building with pillars that looked like teeth. The rain had stopped, but the sky was the color of a bruise. I stood at the bottom of the steps. I was wearing a black suit, sharp and tailored. I didn't look like a bride. I looked like a prosecutor. Nina stood to my left. Graham stood to my right. At 9 o'clock exactly, a black town car pulled up to the curb. Martin Young stepped out. He looked impeccable. The rage my mother had described was gone, tucked away beneath a charcoal suit and a silk tie. He looked like the Martin Young who accepted awards, the Martin Young who gave speeches about integrity. He wasn't alone. Walking beside him was Parker Sloan, the most expensive defense attorney in the state. Sloan was a shark in a three-piece suit, known for burying victims under mountains of paperwork. They walked up the steps to meet us. Martin stopped 2 steps above me, using the elevation to look down. It was a power move. I didn't step back. Ellie, Martin said. His voice was calm, disappointment laced with patience. I'm glad you came to your senses. He looked at Graham, then dismissed him with a flick of his eyes. Mister, Sloan has the settlement papers, Martin said. We can go inside to the cafeteria and sign them. We can stop this ugliness right now. I am not signing anything. Dad, I said. Parker Sloan stepped forward. Ms. Young, if you are not here to sign the withdrawal of the complaint, then this meeting is over. We will see you in court. And I should warn you, filing a frivolous complaint against a member of the bar is actionable. We will be countersuing for malicious prosecution and emotional distress. I looked at Sloan. Then I looked at my father. I pulled a small digital recorder from my pocket. I clicked it on. "This conversation is being recorded." I said, "We are in a public space." Martin's jaw tightened. "Put that away. Ellie, you are being childish." "I am being accurate," I said. I opened the folder Nina handed me. "I am not here to argue about feelings." "Dad," I said, "I am here to clarify the timeline." I began to read. "On January 14th, you created a document titled Family Governance Plan, restricting my access to Alderbrook Landing. On January 20th, you contacted Kelsey Rudd and authorized a contingency plan for a mental health crisis that had not happened. On February 2nd, you spoofed the phone numbers of your wife and children using a digital service registered to a shell company called MCHF Operations." Martin shifted his weight. "Ellie, this is absurd. On February 3rd, I continued, my voice rising just enough to carry over the sound of the morning traffic. "You entered the Seabrook Glass House at 6:15 in the evening. Security footage shows you swapping the officiant's binder. On February 4th, my wedding day, you held your family in a locked conference room at Bayline Executive Suites while you forged my signature on a trust addendum." Martin laughed. It was a forced, brittle sound. "Forged? Ellie, you are hysterical. You signed that addendum. You were confused." "Yes, but you signed it." I held up the notepad from the conference room. "The one with the graphite rubbings of his practice signatures. I have the forensic analysis of this notepad," I said, "and I have the sworn statement of the receptionist who saw you enter the room alone." Parker Sloan put a hand on Martin's arm. "Mr. Young, we should leave." Martin shook him off. He stepped down one step, closing the distance between us. His eyes were cold. Blue ice. "You think you are so smart," he hissed. "You think you have found a smoking gun. You have nothing. Ellie, you have a few coincidences and a husband who is whispering conspiracy theories because he got caught embezzling." Graham didn't flinch. He just watched Martin with a look of pity. I turned the page in my folder. I found the letters. "Dad," I said. Martin froze. The color drained from his face so fast, it looked like a light switch had been flipped. "What letters?" he whispered. "The letters from Harlan." I said, "The ones you locked in the tackle box in the study. The ones you thought I would never find because you were going to bulldoze the house today. I saw the fear then. It wasn't the fear of losing money. It was the fear of being exposed. Harlan Young was the only man Martin had ever feared. The only man who saw through the charm to the emptiness underneath. He told me," I said, "he told me you were a man with a hole in your pocket. He told me you would steal from me to paint a portrait of yourself." Martin's hands curled into fists at his sides. "He was senile," Martin shouted. The composure shattered. The voice echoed off the stone pillars. He was a bitter old man who didn't understand what it took to build a legacy. "I built this family. I built that firm. I carried all of you on my back. You didn't carry us." I said, "You consumed us." I looked past him, to the parking lot. "You said I embarrassed the family." I said, "You said I was alone." I pointed. "Look." Martin turned. Walking across the parking lot were 4 figures. My mother, Denise, wearing a raincoat and clutching her purse like a shield. Tessa, holding Jared's hand. Aunt Lorna, walking with a cane but moving with determination. They didn't run. They didn't shout. They just walked until they reached the bottom of the steps. They stood behind me, a wall of Youngs. Martin looked at them. He looked at Denise. "Denise," he barked, "get in the car." My mother didn't move. She looked at him, her eyes red-rimmed but steady. "No. Martin," she said. "What?" he asked, as if she had spoken in a foreign language. I said no. She repeated, "I am not getting in the car. I am standing with my daughter." Martin looked at Jared. "Jared, you have a loan coming due. You better think very carefully about where you are standing." "I already filed the affidavit." "Dad," Jared said, his voice shaking but audible. "I told the truth." Martin looked at Tessa. She just crossed her arms and stared him down. He was alone. For the first time in his life, The king of Maple Crest was standing on his stage with no audience. Martin looked back at me. He looked at the recorder in my hand. He looked at the lawyer beside him who was already checking his watch, calculating how fast he could distance himself from this disaster. Martin took a breath. He smoothed his tie. He tried to summon the magic one last time. He stepped down until he was right in front of me. He leaned in close, so only I could hear. "Ellie," he said softly, "look at you. You are making such a scene." He smiled. It was a terrifying, intimate smile. "You know," he whispered, "you are just like your grandmother. She had these episodes too. She would imagine things. She would hurt the people she loved because she couldn't tell the difference between a dream and reality." He paused. "You are just tired. Ellie, you are remembering it wrong. Just like the car accident. You were driving. Remember? You were always so careless. I fixed it for you. I can fix this too. Just give me the papers, and I will make the monsters go away." I felt the old hook snag in my chest. The doubt. Am I crazy? Did I make this up? Is he protecting me? It was his masterpiece, a single sentence designed to undo 33 years of reality. I looked at him. I looked at the lines around his eyes. I looked at the desperate, hungry need in his face. I didn't blink. I wasn't driving. "Dad?" I said. "You were, and I don't need you to fix anything." I turned to Nina Carver. I held out the folder. The folder contained the letters from Harlan, the sworn affidavits from my family, the forensic report on the forgery, the bank records showing the payments to the Salinger settlement. "I authorize you to file the evidence package with the State Bar and the District Attorney's Office." I said loud enough for the recorder to catch. "Do it," I said. Nina took the folder. Martin lunged. He actually reached for the folder, his composure snapping completely. "No!" he screamed. "You ungrateful little—" Graham stepped in. He didn't touch Martin. He just placed his body between us. A solid wall of calm. "Back up, Martin," Graham said. Martin stopped. He looked at Graham, then at me, then at his family standing in a line behind me. He looked at the courthouse doors. He looked at the world he had built. It was over. Parker Sloan cleared his throat. "Mr. Young, I think we should go. I can no longer represent you in this matter." Martin stood there for a long moment. He looked at me one last time. There was no love in his eyes. There was only hate, the pure, distilled hate of a narcissist who has lost control. He turned and walked down the steps, past his wife, past his children. He got into the black town car alone. The car drove away. I stood on the steps. The rain started again. A light, cold mist. My mother came up and put her arms around me. Then Tessa. Then Jared. We stood there in a huddle, a broken family finally starting to heal the bone. Graham squeezed my hand. "It is done," he said. I looked at the folder in Nina's hand, the bomb that would detonate my father's life. "It is done," I said. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt free. 6 months later. The legal dust was still settling. Martin Young had been disbarred. The investigation into the trust fraud had uncovered not just the Salinger payoff, but a dozen other embezzlements. He was facing indictment. He was living in a rented apartment in Philadelphia, alone. Alderbrook Landing was not sold. I fired Bright Marsh Development. I hired a restoration crew. I was standing on the porch of the lake house, watching the sun go down over the water. The mud was gone, replaced by new grass. The house was being painted, yellow, just like Harlan had it. Graham walked out onto the porch. He handed me a glass of wine. He had started a consulting firm. He was rebuilding, too. My mother was inside, laughing at something Aunt Lorna said. It was a sound I hadn't heard in years. I looked at the water. I thought about the wedding. We never did have a reception. We never cut the cake. But I looked at the ring on my finger, and I looked at the man standing next to me. I didn't need a reception. I had the truth. And for the first time in my life, the silence wasn't heavy. It was just peace. Thank you so much for listening to On My Wedding Day, Not a Single Family Member Showed Up. It has been a journey walking in Ellie's shoes. and I hope her story of reclaiming her truth resonated with you. I would love to hear from you. Where are you listening from today? Have you ever had to stand up to someone you love to protect yourself? Please share your thoughts in the comments below in English. And if you enjoyed this story, please make sure to subscribe to Revenge Stories for more tales of betrayal, justice, and the resilience of the human spirit. Until next time.